war of Russia against Ukraine. Is it 10 years or 2? Neither 2 nor 10. 21. Whoa. The length of this conflict is 21 years. Why? Because its beginning was rather firmly noted, at least in public space, 17th of September 2003. On that date, Vladimir Putin publicly announced his territorial questions to Ukraine in Kerch Strait and Azov and Black Sea basins. He pronounced this task for himself and posted this task in front of the military political leadership of Russia about acquiring these territories. These documents were public. They were published back then. They are still on the Kremlin site, September 17th, 2003. And it's surprising to me that my Ukrainian colleagues and friends and politicians and diplomats and intel people, whoever, analysts, during all these years have never paid attention when the public part of this conflict, of this aggression, started. What was it? Was it his statement? What was the event? It was a special session of the highest military political leadership of Russia in the city of Yeysk in Krasnodar region. The session itself was closed, but there were a lot of publications on the outcome of it, answers to questions and statements that were made. All that is in open space. It's all published. And before conducting this event on the 17th of September in Yeysk, Putin took a boat trip alongside the Black Sea coast and Caucasus and Azov Sea. During the daytime of that September 17th, he met with then President of Ukraine, Kuchma, on the island of Beryuchi, not far from the shore. I think it's Kherson region. That's where the negotiations happened between Kuchma and Putin, and probably they were dedicated to the matters that were published later. Putin, I suspect, was trying to get some feedback from the president of Ukraine. What would happen if Putin will start his aggressive motions? The meeting was not successful and not friendly for both parts. The pictures that remain from this meeting, they tell rather grim faces of both negotiators. And after this meeting, Putin flew to Yeysk to conduct this event, this session. I'll say once again, during this session and after it, publicly, for journalists and for Russian journalists, international journalists, for Ukraine, he made public statements that there is a territorial conflict between Russia and Ukraine. And Leonid Danilovich told me later how this meeting went and what happened after. If you remember, or you can look it up in the historic documents, after a meeting in Yeysk, Putin flew to Belbek, airport Belbek near Sebastopol, and then there was a meeting. There was a Russia, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, and I think Belarus. That was announced that it was a new economic space. After that, everybody departed. In a day or two, signed all the economic documents, announced all the toasts, and drank all the whatever needs to be drank at this moment. So after that happened, huge trucks loaded with granite, with stones, started to create a dam to the Ukrainian island of Tuzla in Kerch Strait. And that became known as the Tuzla conflict. With the island of Tuzla and Kerch conflict, you can look it up again. That lasted from about the 20th of September 2003 till the beginning, or actually middle of October of the same year. And during the last days of this issue, the speed of that dam building was rather fast, almost 100 yards per day. And the dam was originating on the Russian shore and was approaching the border, the internationally acknowledged border in the Kerch Strait between two countries. And when it approached the border, President Kuchma himself, he just landed in Brazil to conduct the first in history Ukrainian Latin American visit. This was a very important visit. Nothing happened before that visit, and there was nothing like that in the world history between Ukraine and Latin America, and nothing after. And as Kuchma told me later during this conversation at Beruchi Island with Vladimir Putin, he did mention to Putin that he is going to fly to Latin America, what time frame, what matters is he going to solve, and exactly when the plane of Ukrainian president touched the tarmac in the capital of Brazil, the dam in Tuzla reached the demarcation border between the waters of Ukraine and Russia. At that moment, Kuchma tried to, as he told me, tried to reach by phone President of Russia. The phone was not working. It was not working neither then, nor in an hour, nor in 2 hours. Nobody was picking up the phone. And after the first day in Brazil, I think it was planned for about a week. Since there were no communications with Moscow, he returned back from Brazil to Ukraine. And he flew not into Kiev, but he landed in Crimea. He went to Kerch right after. From there, he took a boat, reached the Tuzla Island. At that time, by his orders, they were already creating some barbed wire lines. They were placing a rather big border guards detachment that hasn't been there before. That was given not only rifles, but also heavier arms. There were some border guard boats present, but the dam was continued to be built and Moscow refused to pick up the phone. That's when the Ukrainian president gave an order: if the dam will cross the demarcation line, the naval border between two countries, open fire. After that order was given, 30 minutes passed, and suddenly a president of Russia called back and asked in a disturbed voice, "What is happening there? Do you have any problems?" And then Kuchma explained what's happening, and Putin pretended that he doesn't know anything. He pretended that it probably was the governor of Krasnodar district who is doing something on his own, and he will figure that problem, he'll resolve the problem, and everything will be all right. There were several more statements later, and by the way, before this phone call, there were different statements from Russian Duma, from Russian Congress. Such a fellow known later, Rogozin, who was Roscosmos head, was also making a bunch of statements. There were a lot of political statements on both sides. The Ukrainian side was talking, asking questions, what's happening, what Moscow is saying, what is Russia doing. There was no answer. But after this all happened, suddenly all questions disappeared, and that was not mentioned for a while. So for today, this war is almost 21 years old. By September of this year, it will be 21 years.